Everyone assumed the blood on her sleeve meant she was weak. No one imagined it was proof she'd survived things they never would. The field clinic buzzed under the harsh midday sun when she staggered inside, boots dragging dust across the concrete. Her name patch read Harris. Her face was pale, jaw clenched, one hand pressed hard against her side. The soldiers at the intake table barely looked up. One of them scoffed. Another muttered that she should wait her turn. When she leaned heavier against the wall, pain rippling through her ribs, someone laughed and said, "This isn't a training camp. Come back when you're actually hurt." Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Harris swallowed the protest burning in her throat. She'd learned long ago that arguing wasted oxygen. The room smelled of antiseptic and hot metal. Sunlight poured through the open canvas flaps, catching dust in the air like floating sparks. Around her, wounded men shifted on cots, some watching with narrowed eyes, others turning away, uncomfortable. A medic glanced at her torn sleeve and shook his head. "We're overloaded," he said flatly. "Sit down. If you can." She slid to the ground instead. The concrete was cool against her back, and for a moment, the memory threatened to surface. Another bright day. Another place where pain meant survival. She pushed it down. She always did. Minutes stretched. Each breath scraped like broken glass. A coffee cup on a nearby crate trembled. As helicopters passed overhead, their rotors chopping the air, someone finally noticed the dark stain spreading under her palm. "You're bleeding," a soldier said, surprised, as if blood had only just become real. Harris nodded. "I know." Still, no one moved. A murmur rippled through the room when she tried to stand again and nearly collapsed. A couple of soldiers stepped closer, not to help, but to watch. There was judgment in their eyes. Doubt. The kind that weighed heavier than the wound itself. She wondered, briefly, if this was how it would end. Not in battle, but ignored in plain daylight. She thought she'd never see him again. She was wrong. The flap at the entrance snapped open. A senior officer stepped in, boots crunching gravel, his shadow cutting across the floor. Conversations died mid-sentence. He scanned the room, then froze when he saw Harris on the ground. His breath hitched, just enough for those watching to notice. "Harris," he said quietly. She lifted her head. Recognition flickered. "Sir." The air shifted. You could feel it, like a storm pulling tight before breaking. The officer knelt beside her, his voice low but steady. "Why hasn't she been treated?" Silence answered him. He peeled back her sleeve with careful fingers, revealing not just a wound, but scars, old, precise, layered. His jaw tightened. He looked up slowly, eyes hard. "Do you know who this is?" he asked the room. No one spoke. "She's Navy SEAL," he said. The words landed like thunder. "And she's been bleeding out on your floor." The reaction was instant. Medics surged forward. Hands reached out. Orders snapped sharp and clean. Stretchers slid across the concrete. Tools clinked in unison. Harris was lifted, the room suddenly moving around her like a living machine. Outside, soldiers gathered, whispers racing ahead of the truth. Faces changed, postures straightened. As they worked, Harris stared up at the bright blue sky. Through the open flap, she felt the sting of antiseptic, the pressure of bandages, the steady rhythm of competence. For the first time since she'd walked in, she allowed herself to breathe. Later, when the bleeding was stopped, and the sun had shifted just slightly west, the officer stood beside her cot. "I'm sorry," he said. Not as a formality, as a truth. Harris nodded. Forgiveness wasn't weakness. She knew that better than anyone. "Just don't let it happen to the next one," she replied. Outside, soldiers lingered, quieter now, changed. Because courage doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it limps in, bleeding, and waits to be seen. And just like that bright afternoon, the truth eventually steps into the light. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. I read every one, And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, subscribe and stay with us. You're always welcome here.